Trauma dumping is when you share deeply emotional or traumatic experiences with someone without their consent and in an overwhelming manner. If you're someone who's gone through a lot of trauma, this can be very tempting. And sometimes when people have gone through a lot of difficult things in their experience, this is how they tend to bond with others. But unfortunately, there is a time and a place where it's appropriate, and it's often inappropriate to overwhelm other people with your trauma stories, unless it's a very close friend or a family member that you really trust. I'm not saying that you shouldn't share your experience, but I'm saying you should do it in the appropriate setting, because when you share or trauma dump on someone who is not willing to receive it and who is not ready to receive it, you end up re-traumatizing yourself as well as really inconvenience the other person. They won't react the way you need them to react. They'll be overwhelmed. They may be silent. Maybe they don't want to hang out with you and go for coffee with you again. You need to build a certain amount of trust and intimacy with people in order to let them in. So it really benefits you as well as the other person if you have some boundaries as to when you share your most inner, intimate, traumatic experiences and secrets with someone. So here's how to avoid trauma dumping. Start by assessing this setting. Is this an appropriate setting for me to share this really personal thing with another person? For example, if you're at work, it's probably not the right time. If it's your first coffee meeting with a new friend, it's probably not the right time. However, if you're sitting an evening enjoying a nice meal with a very close friend, it's an intimate situation where it's appropriate and maybe even welcome to share your experiences and help each other through whatever you've gone through. A good idea is to try and seek consent from the other person before you start talking about your trauma. You can ask them, I have a bit of a heavy mindset today. Would you mind if I share some of this with you, or is it too much? The problem is that the other person might be awkward and say, oh yeah, sure, you can share. So even though they say yes, try to use your intuition to figure out if it's appropriate for you to continue. Do they seem like they're welcoming you when you're sharing these experiences, or do they seem a little bit distant and cut off from the whole thing? But try, if you can, to seek some sort of consent. Maybe the person will say, wow, yes, please share, and they'll be so open to it, and then you're glad that you asked, because then you don't have to feel awkward about sharing. It's also good to set a clear intention when you do share trauma with people in your life. Do you want to just vent? Are you looking for advice, or are you looking for connection? So you can start by identifying that within yourself and then tell the other person, I don't want you to give me any advice on this. I just need somebody to vent to. Is it okay that I vent to you for just about 20 minutes or half an hour? And then you know that they won't come up with annoying advice that you didn't ask for and that you don't want. And have strong boundaries about who you tell what to. You shouldn't open up about your trauma to people that you barely know. You shouldn't open up to anyone until they have proved to you that they're trustworthy. Otherwise, you are really doing yourself a disservice. They might be talking about your back. You don't know. There are all kinds of people out there, and you don't want to trust someone that you don't know with your most inner, deepest wounds. That's just too fragile. Last but not least, reflect on your emotional intensity before you talk to someone. It's never a good idea to talk to someone if you're in too much emotional turmoil. It's better to do some journaling first, or find a way to re-regulate before you communicate with another person. So what you say is going to make sense, and they're going to be able to receive it and understand where you're coming from, and hopefully be there for you in the way that you need to. So it's really, really good to learn tools and techniques to re-regulate your emotions by yourself before you go and involve other people in your emotional processes. So that's highly relevant for someone with an anxious attachment style, for example, where it's very difficult for someone with an anxious attachment style to regulate their own emotions. And that's the challenge, and that can become very overwhelming for other people. So I highly recommend practicing journaling, meditating, just sitting with your emotions, sitting with the feelings without having to do anything. You can also exercise. There are many things that work. You just got to figure out what works for you. And then, of course, there's the obvious. Talk to a professional, talk to a therapist. Make sure that you get some sort of support before dumping all of this stuff onto your friends. By being mindful of how you share your stories from your life, you're really doing yourself a favor, and you're also helping the people around you. I'm sure that your social life will thrive more when you learn to keep this balance. So the advice in this video is not, no, you should never share your inner feelings with anyone. Quite the opposite, you should, but you should pick and choose who you share with, and you should be very deliberate about which circumstances you're in and if it's the right setting for you to be sharing this. I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.